October. There are no call for apologies, but it was done, we're all here. Extraordinary business. Any items of extraordinary business? No declarations of interest in today's meeting? No confirmation of the minutes, and we'll discuss whether the minutes are correct or not, and we'll go to page 3, the agenda, page 4, page 5, and 6. I'd like to move to the true and accurate record of that meeting. Councillor Lovett, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Next item is the receipt of is Audit and Risk Committee 11th of September, and we'll receive those minutes held on the 11th of September. And there's one issue, one recommendation to Council. Councillor Brown, Councillor Millen. Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. We've received the minutes, and there's a recommendation here to Council. The Council receives the Danforth Treasury Report for the June 24 quarter. So I'd like to move Councillor Cameron, Councillor Russell, Ellis. All in favour, please say aye. Yes. Carried. Was there any discussion of that? Carried. We're having QB in at 1:15, and we're slightly ahead of schedule. Is QB here ready to go, do we know? If not, we will move on to item number 6. I know the presentation is set up to go. QB being quotable value.
Just checking. Sorry, we're just checking if they're downstairs.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 6, which is the Learning Hub. Welcome, Simon. And Simon, we've got the report here, Ian, page 9. Anything further you'd like to add?
No, nothing further.
Nothing further. I've got questions first. Councillors, questions? Councillor Mellon.
Thank you. Question, I'm not sure what page it is, sorry, just see if I can find it. But in your report you said that you were not able to have talks with Mount Hutt College about their proposed innovation hub. I was wondering, have you talked to Ashburton College about anything that they're looking at doing, and has there been any overlaps with what they're thinking and what you're thinking of the Learning Hub?
Yeah, so through the chair, the consultant we had doing the research tried on a number of occasions to get hold of Mount Hutt and couldn't arrange a time to get together, so the information was unavailable at the time. That's not to say that we won't be talking to them about the innovation hub that they're looking at. Where we're at with the whole body of work at the moment is finding out what's there so that there's no duplication for whatever we go on to do. And the group met yesterday most recently, and that was a real theme of the group, was not to duplicate anything that's currently in existence, but to try and build on and assist with a broader network of providers where possible.
Thank you. This is just a point of clarification, Simon. When I look at the page 16, provider, training delivered, number of learners, it said 0.75 people learning, so it's sort of a person doing part-time courses.
No. So the measure, the payment measure that the tertiary providers use is a thing called an EFT, and it's an equivalent full-time learner.
Yeah.
So it's a measure that they use for deriving funding, but multiple people could be put together to make an EFT.
Yeah, so there's multiple people making 0.75 of an equivalent full-time training person at ARA in this district.
And that's down from 24 EFTs back in 2012.
Thanks.
Councillor Lovett.
Just going to Ara, with the government's changing in education and all these specs are starting to put out and expecting, are they going to play a bigger role in this county developing more courses, and is it going to overlap with ours, or have you had any info going forward?
So through the chair, there's a couple of responses to that question. So ARA are part of the advisory group that we're working with, so they're very much part of what we're thinking. We're not looking to, again, duplicate. What we're trying to do is acknowledge the provision that's in place and strengthen it. The second thing, with the change of government direction with Te Pukenga, and then it looks like things are falling back to the regions. That's not necessarily the district. That's an unknown at this stage, and we're going to be working through with ARA over the next few months to see where that lands and what that looks like and what the implications for the district might be. So we don't know. I guess there's a multitude of options available to the government in terms of how they might look to arrange tertiary education. What we're really trying to drive is that we make it easier for people in Mid-Canterbury to learn. That's the real ethos behind what we're trying to do. So we're not trying to duplicate, we're trying to add to the providers that are there. Where this provider's missing, we'll look to fill those gaps, but it will be with the existing providers providing advice and guidance as to how we do that, not us as council trying to dictate. We're simply facilitating and leading the process at the moment, and working with all of the providers who are currently based in Mid-Canterbury. So,
Because in the report you talk a lot about agriculture, and I'm just going to ask about the Winchmore Research Station. Is that agricultural college or that campus, is it still running, or have they given up with lack of people?
through the chair, my understanding is that the company is still trading, but there's no activity going on at the moment. So there aren't, to my knowledge, there aren't any training. There's no trainees going through that program at the moment.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Bottom of page 17, you've got the Ashburton residents qualification levels. So does that take into account our migrant workers who maybe have overseas qualifications that don't sort of match up with our New Zealand ones? I see you've got level 1 and 2 in there, and some level 6s, but that would be New Zealand standards. So are they included in those?
Through the chair, I'd need to get back to you on exactly who's in and out. It's a measure of the working age population, but I'm not sufficiently confident to answer that question on overseas workers. I certainly know that the normally resident population would certainly be included in that figure, and it's a figure that comes from the Household Labour Force Survey, but quite how overseas workers are treated, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. The initial feeling from the working group, Simon, is it a positive one, and do they see a gap for what we're sort of hoping to achieve all in all?
So through the chair, yeah, there was a lot of positivity yesterday, and actually it was really nice to see conversations going across the group yesterday, where they were, so an example was Keep Learning Mid-Canterbury and Business Canterbury were talking about how they could elevate the knowledge of courses that Business Canterbury are doing through local networks. So for me that's a real positive in terms of getting the message out there to a much broader group of people. So there's still a lot of work to do. One of the key topics the group talked about yesterday was the need for better information, better needs of both businesses and the community. And so we had a talk about how we could do that and bring that evidence together. But really underpinning it with getting, lots of people say they need learning, they want training and they want learning. I go to businesses a lot who talk about their needs for training, but there's the next step then, which is actually the businesses that will commit and pay for it. So that propensity to pay, we need to understand much better than we do at the moment.
Councillor Todd?
Thank you. So, do you know or have a inkling of how many people commute or leave Ashburton to further their studies who may stay here? I'm aware of the ones that do stay here, but
Yeah, so through the chair, we've got some, so certainly school leaver data is quite good in that respect, because it's tagged on the student ID number.
okay.
So those students are tracked from the schools that they leave to the tertiary courses that they do. And on page 29, there's actually a graph that shows
Okay.
Where they go to and how many go on to each of those courses for over the last from 2019 to 22. So we've got a good sense of that. What we don't have a good sense of is those kind of second chance learners. So people like you and me who might decide that we're going to go back to study and we'll leave the district because of that.
Okay.
Much lower numbers than young people, but we don't have visibility.
Just one more. Of all the politics in New Zealand, I read that only two actually make money. Are you confident that going forward, what you're proposing, I suppose will be on the right side of the ledger, for want of a better word?
So through the chair, that will be determined by the concept and feasibility studies that we do next year.
Okay.
At the moment, what the activity is really working around getting our existing providers working better together, and that as I say, there was some positive shoots, positive signs of that yesterday, and I hope that will continue and that will strengthen the provision, hopefully without the need to spend any money. It's just utilising what we've already got in a much more effective and efficient way. In terms of answering the question, we're looking to, whatever we look to do, I hope will be sort of cost neutral at least, we'll be very much looking for funding models that we can derive money from the education providers for a facility here, of whatever that facility looks like, and that's still unknown.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. You've missed out Geraldine High, which does actually, there is zone in our district, so you need to perhaps have looked at that one. The southern part is, you don't go to Ashburton College, they go to Geraldine High, to Karoo and up there. With respect to the tipanga, so we've got, I just want to understand the difference between someone who's doing an ag ITO or that sort of it is actually called ag ITO in the cars now, it's changed, and a apprenticeship, which is like a building apprenticeship, which is sort of almost full-time, and then there's the third one. So there's ag ITO, which is part-time farmer learning effectively, apprenticeships, which are full-time, they're a different sort of learning, and then you have some of the remote learning part-time ones. So with those figures, are they sort of split up? Because there's a huge amount of people in the ARA Institute. Now, are they full-time or are they part-time? Just so I understand, because if they're full-time, most of them would leave the district effectively to go to those institutes, whereas if they're part-time, a lot will actually still be in the district.
So through the chair, the table on page 16 is ARA students who are in Ashburton, and then the table on page 29, I think that's it, is all students. So there will be a mixture in all of those groups of people who are in the district and who aren't. We're asking TEC for more detail on the apprenticeships and where they are, because you rather point out some of them may be here some of them may, and studying and doing the whole qualification in the district. Some may be doing the practical aspects of their qualification in the district and then having to travel a day a week to their programs, and some might be completely out of the district. So we're sort of trying to get TEC to drill into that more at the moment, but that involves other data sets. Sorry, TEC is the Tertiary Education Commission.
Simon, just a question for myself, and you've got next steps on page 22. We want to support the concept of a phased approach, endorse the establishment of a learning network, and decide the role of council with the learning network needs supported there, and consider the level of funding and investment options of the resources. Have you got any funding in future years, or where's the funding coming from to enact this if we want to enact?
Yeah, so those next steps were the recommendation of the consultant
Yeah.
in the report. We have $50,000 in year 2 for a concept and feasibility. That will put a lot more flesh on the bones in terms of what it is we're actually going to ultimately propose. And at that point, there would be a paper back to council to outline what that might look like and what the costs may or may not be.
Yeah, and that's in the fourth bullet point on page 9. That's for going 50k. Thanks. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, that was my question. Are there any other questions after me? Otherwise I'll move. I'd like
Oh,
to-
we've got one. Councillor.
I'm just going to ask, there was another place in the northern South Island that was looking at this concept. I'm not sure whether it was Nelson or somewhere, and it was 2 years ago. Have you found who that is? Because I think I asked you this question the other day, how they're going with this, and because they kind of didn't know whether it was going to be successful or not, and I thought before we kind of get too involved, it would be quite nice to know how they're tracking. Or is there another town doing the same thing?
Through the chair, I can't honestly answer whether we've talked to the Nelson.
It was up there somewhere.
Yeah, there is a list on pages 23 through 25 of all of the different learning hub models that we've looked at and sort of assessed against. So there was quite a lot of suggestion that the Wellington High School model was a really good one, and it is, but there are nuances with that might not work in a mid-Canterbury setting, particularly the time frame of it being open. So, but yeah, I'll try and find more information on what was going on in Nelson.
Councillor Wilson.
I accept the report, but I reiterate Councillor McMillan's discussion around Methven High, because they come in and presented to us when we were talking about, some buildings we were going to get rid of, about their exciting opportunity up at the highs, and since it's been missed out in this report, we need to make sure that that's fully, and Methven's up the road up there, Ashburton College is over there, so probably should have told the consultants need to understand that it's only 20 minutes up the road. They could have gone and knocked on their door. They could have gone a bit slack, really. Yeah.
No, the consultant, sorry, through the chair, the consultant is from Mount Somers, so understands that area, but just couldn't get a time to meet with the school, unfortunately. But we will have that information as we go in, and the schools are being invited to the advisory group as well, so they're part of it.
There's a recommendation there. Councillor Cameron move.
Thank you, and I'd like to speak to it at some stage, please.
Okay, second it. Councillor Todd. Second the motion.
Thank you. I support the investigation into the possibility of a learning hub in Ashburton. I think we have fewer people in learning, and we have a higher percentage of NEETs, as not in employment education, as I understand. So I think anything we can correct, any way we can correct that by making it easier for people to seek tertiary education or advanced training, will only benefit the district. I think this report is a great start to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of the more in-depth review.
Further speakers for or against? Put the motion on favour, please say aye. That's carried. Thank you. Item number 7. Oh, sorry. QB. quotable value is here. So Jeremy Clayton and Chris Rogers have come forward, set up, they've got the presentation ready to go as I understand. Welcome, gentlemen. The district's just been, you've just revalued the district, which you do every 3 years. And with ratepayers, we will have had a letter in the mail in the last week or two saying what our values have done. Generally, they haven't gone down, they've gone up. And you're going to take us through some of the reasons why, I presume, our value has moved.
Yep.
Great, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
So if I may just quickly introduce them, you've got Jeremy Clayton, South Island Revaluation Team, and Chris Rogers, Operations Manager. Between them, I've got around 20 years now with QV, and I got the joy of working with them recently while we went through this process. So, welcome to both.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yep, and thanks for having us here today to discuss the Ashburton District revaluation, which was a successful one from our point of view. Went very well. Just going to touch on a couple of blank slides that were just created on that last little second there. There we go. A little bit around the legislation and rules that we're governed by. It's the Rating Valuations Act of 1998, and that's supported by the Rating Valuation Rules of 2008. And those that legislation gives our auditors, the Office of the Valuer General, regulatory power over the rating values. So they will audit everything that comes in. And over the last 4 or 5 years, they've really asked us to up our game. So we're getting more robust quality values out so that you guys can strike the rates on those. Rating valuations versus market valuations. Rating valuations are a snapshot in time. So the market can move, but we are still back at the 1st of July 2024. And we've obviously, the last sort of 3 years from the previous revaluation, had a very turbulent time. Now we're looking for, from a valuation point of view, small, nice growth would be ideal, but you know, that's a snapshot in time. They do not include plant or equipment or chattels or trees, and they're based on a freehold title, not a leasehold interest. And then most importantly, the community and the district sets those values, and we interpret those through the sales evidence, and we interpret those into rating valuations. This is the Office of the Valuer General. They've, over those last, I mentioned, 4 or 5 years, they've made it very difficult. Our job is a lot more difficult, which is fine, but that just has come with increased cost and time that we have to spend on producing those values. They came up originally with a traffic light system, and it's evolved into now what we call the OVG Rainbow, which has another few colours in it. But basically, for the Ashburton District, we got a green light, which is the best one, and there was no delays to the process, and everything went through swimmingly. So it gets worse from green down to red, but we won't get into that, but I'll talk about the red one. A little bit about the process. A lot of planning goes in with council and the OVG, and there's a big emphasis on that collaboration and that sharing of data and information, and council's been great in helping us along on that this time around and in the previous past years. There's a lot of cleansing of sales information and data, so we will hone into all those poignant sales around that as at date, and even rural, commercial and industrial. We'll canvass all sales that happen in that period. We're gathering secondary evidence, so we're going out talking to valuers in the district, agents. We send out surveys to rural and commercial and industrial property owners to get their market rents, what they're operating on their farm, as much information as we can to make sure that our values are as robust as possible. The detailed sales analysis process that I alluded to. We'll set the market adjustments based on those sales, that interpretation from what's happening in the market. We'll inspect online checks, but also in person, so we'll canvass the streets, and we'll use all the possible IT tools we can to get all the best information. We will then further review the values and make general adjustments. And then something that we've beefed up in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, or particularly in the last 2, has been our quality assurance team. So we have, as I alluded to, we get audited. Our quality assurance team is comprises of, I don't expect you to be able to read all that, but just to show you the processes that we're taking, comprises of 3 former Valuer General office auditors. So we have them in-house now that can review our work before it goes to the audit. So that's proved really beneficial for us. So we're auditing it before the audit. We do that right at the start, so we're on the right track, and then we also do it at the validation of the values for a final audit before it goes to the auditors. Big part of that has been the development of our thematic mapping, which has been demanded by the Office of the Valuer General. And that, what you're looking at there is Ashburton dollars per square metre on the new values. As you can see, obviously at a higher rate as we go into that sort of high density in the central city. But that has been very beneficial for making our values as robust as possible. I'll hand you over to Jeremy here. He's going to walk through the strategic overview.
So this is what we provide the OVG. So we talk to them. They want us to really dig in now to the overall picture of the district. So as you most probably already know, that Ashburton is usually slightly better off than in North Island townships where the OVG are coming from. It took them a while to get their head around that we weren't seeing the big drops like everywhere else up there, that your unemployment rate is still sitting better than the national average in that sense, so therefore you're pretty steady and pretty strong in that employment area. As well as you have got quite a diverse area. In that sense, you've got from the dairy and arable, also you've got your Methven where you've got your tourism, and then you've got your servicing town of Ashburton, servicing that rural and commercial need. The major ones, new ones, is your new freight hub, which has been developed as it before the revaluation, but hasn't shown the full potential coming through for your values yet. In that sense, we're mostly going to see that in 3 years' time, the true extent of that freight hub, what it has on that industrial location. So heading in a wee bit more into your residential, even though your construction price has increased, that it has had a bit of an impact on that demand for land. Even though you've got the new subdivisions surrounding Ashburton, which are going pretty well, we have seen that it has, compared to back in 2022, that has seen a wee bit of an easing in through there. Your inner city land values are seeing the biggest growth in the sense of it's your development areas, which has seen nearly, in some places, a doubling of land values, mainly because of that 1,000 square metre site has been looking to be broken down into 4 or 5 units, so that there has increased that value level. We've seen a few places that have sold that had older dwellings that have now been redeveloped, so that dwelling, that's overall price is what we're looking at as a land value, so taking that into there. Compared to your bigger sites surrounding the town, which have not seen as much growth in that. They were already high valued compared to surrounding. The only ones, and especially the covenants, you might see in Methven, where the new area has, the new subdivisions are going at a lower rate compared to the older, mainly because your older township has no covenants. That means that you can put a relocatable on, and due to the cost of building a new house is a lot harder in a subdivision compared to in an existing area. We did do a big project as well, and we'd really like to thank the council being involved in this, especially Lorraine Anderson. Renumbering the outskirts of the town was a big job in the sense that it brought us into the sales group, into the town sales group, and therefore we had no cusping issues between rural and residential, and it was a big job, and it was much appreciated from our side of the council. It was also noted by the OVG in our exit interview about the collaboration between us and council. and that we were on the same page. So it was a big thank you to the team here. You know, we had constant meetings and, you know, shared quite thoroughly information back and forth. So it made our process really easy, knowing what was happening in the town. So if you go to the next one, so this shows movement over the last 3 years. So there's the black line there is your last revaluation. If you would have been looking anywhere else in the North Island, like in Auckland, at 2022, you would see a huge spike and then coming right back down. But as through majority of the Canterbury districts, it has a wee jump at that 2022, but it's very constant over the lot. We're not seeing a massive jump in values at any stage. It's more of a steady movement in there. So, and for your commercial, there's not as much movement there, mainly because you've got higher interest rates. A wee bit off the centre of your town has had a slight movement back from its land values, mainly just due to some of the bulk retail moving across to the other side, to the west side, the west side of town. That has seen a slight decrease into the retail areas of your historical CBD. There have some earthquake-prone buildings, which the list has definitely dropped from previous years. Some have been demolished and repurposed. And again, that new freight hub, we haven't seen the full potential of it yet in your values, but we're mostly expecting that coming through for the next 3 years, giving that confidence to that service of industrial area.
Back to me for the rural and lifestyle. What we've been looking at on the rural side has been pretty limited sales over the last 12 months. So we've had to sort of cast our net a lot wider to get that sales information. Good quality properties are still selling pretty well, or very well. It's just that there's lesser quality properties being a bit stickier on the market, staying a longer time on the market. Anything with arable dairy support properties, those have all tightened up at more of a similar level now, as opposed to dairy platform used to always have a little bit of a step ahead, but those have really tightened up that gap, that space. And anything without that dairy support or arable ability has eased. So there's the haves and the have-nots. That gap is getting a bit bigger. But everything at that top is getting squeezed together on the arable, the dairy platform, and the dairy support. And quality lifestyle properties are still selling well. And that's pretty indicative of any sort of market where it's slowed a bit. We're still steady as we go in Canterbury, but those good properties sell well, and those lesser quality properties are just a wee bit stickier. Here's the overall revaluation overview for the district. As you'll see, there's been a 10.1% increase on capital value growth over the 3-year period, and an 8.4% increase to land value. Big take-home items here would be that dairy, pastoral and arable, around that sort of 5 to 7.5% increase on capital value, and the residential and lifestyle at about 15%, and residential at that 16.9%. So that residential and lifestyle going up at a more of a rate than the rural properties, and also the commercial. Commercial property is at 5.6% increase, and industrial has been indicative throughout the country. It's still remained pretty robust, and it's at 14.5% increase. So a good news story, I think. Good positive growth across the district. Everything playing out pretty well. There's just a bar graph form of that, as you can see. Those residential and lifestyle near the middle, leading the way. Mining, fewer properties and lower value, but it's that bigger jump in the middle. This is the capital value by sector. As you'll see, over 50% of the capital value for the district is in those blue, orange and light grey coloured portions of the pie, and that is your dairy, arable, and your pastoral properties. Pastoral will include our dairy support to a degree. And then as you see the land value, it's over 70% of the increase of that value is held in the pastoral, the dairy and the arable properties. And then when you compare that to your property mix, 67% is residential property. And those dairy, arable and pastoral properties, they make up around 10% of the actual property mix, but that's where the value is held, both capital and land value throughout the districts. Teaching your sucky eggs here that you obviously know all this. Objections, so on mass appraisal we rely heavily on an objection process so that if anything is incorrect, a ratepayer or homeowner can object to their rate valuation. We recommend they call our call centre at first port of call, discuss with somebody, and we can also lodge online at ratingvalues.co.nz or qv.co.nz. That objection window closes on the 25th of October, and we'll be processing those objections, going out on site, inspecting everyone from November onwards, and we'll have them all tidied away before the rate strike for these values, which is used for the 1st of July 2025, which is coming around very quickly. And there you go, some of the key dates. Effective date for valuation, 1st of July 2024. Those owners' notices were posted out from the 18th of September, so they should be very much in circulation now. And that objection period closes on the 25th of October. And as I just said, these values are used for rating purposes from the 1st of July 2025. So that's about it for us, but open to any sort of questions you have now around the revaluation process or the values.
Thank you, Chairman, for that update, and Councillor, we have that presentation on our computers, and we'll look at it later. Are there any questions? Well, and I just have one. We have urban and rural valuation. It used to sit about 78% to rural to urban. Do you know what that number is now, with urban going up higher than rural? Is that a number that you work out?
On the property mix or the value?
Yeah, the value on the value.
The value, yep, that was, which one was that?
Urban versus rural.
It's capital value by sector.
Oh, now.
Councillors are looking for your hands and questions.
So that's capital value by sector. Those, the blue, orange and the light grey, that's that pastoral, dairy and arable, which makes up a smidge over 50%. I can give you the exact number if I give me a second here. I've got specialist property in there too. Add them up quickly, Jeremy. 23, 26, 38, 38.
42%. How much the other one?
Light blue.
Light blue.
Pressure, sorry.
50,
Maths eludes me at this point.
52, 55. Roughly around 55, a wee bit more and change with the points.
Yeah, and that'll be your capital value. And that next one just shows the land value, which is all held in those three dairy, pastoral and arable.
And your residential is 26% of the capital value.
Is urban.
26% for
Is
residential.
residential.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's broken down into that bar graph, or the one prior to that.
Phil.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, gentlemen, and congratulations on your beards. They're awesome. If somebody objects, does that cost?
No, there's no cost for an objection. We will go out and inspect every objection, refer it internally, but we will make contact with most objectors, unless we agree with them and say, oh, we're probably a bit light there. we will agree, but we would inspect every property, there's no cost to that.
And with being online now, you can upload pictures and everything like that. So the more information that an objector is willing to give at that stage makes it a lot easier going forward in that sense. So
Do you get more objections, people saying, oh, I'm not moving for 20 years, you've chucked it up too high, or the other way around?
Well, historically, residential people would object and want them up, and everyone else would object and want them down. But we've noticed quite a change over the last sort of 2 years where just the cost of living playing out, and that is more people objecting and wanting them down than up. Across the board.
and it's therefore it's just more explaining to them
Yeah.
on how it's done
Yep.
and what it is, and showing them that here's your say, like you might have to explain a wee bit more if people want, to say, no, I want it down because I don't want to pay rates. We can still go out there and explain it to them. We've got to set a fair value. That's not to sit on the rate side of things.
So yeah, every residential objector now can also download an objection report from our website, so they can get that clarity, and there's a bit more transparency on what we've done here. So it's a new development of ours as well over the last 12 months.
Councillor Cameron?
Thank you. Thank you for that. 2 questions, please. You said there was more robust evaluations that you undertook this time. How do you do that? How is it more robust?
It is audited more stringently than it has been in, say, 3 revaluations ago. A bit of that has been on the market changes, but we've just had to make sure that all the layers of different data and information that we gather are incorporated into our values, and we've got great assistance from council in getting those resource consent information, building consent info, more data fields that we need to store to support our values. And we provide a basis document for what our values are based on to the OVG, and that is a document that's gone from about that fat to about 2 documents, and it's just
Sure.
And also with technology as well. So as we saw with that thematic mapping, that
Yes.
wasn't a part of last time. That's something we've created over the last 3 years. And that's a massive game changer for us in the sense that we can now go, especially for residential and stuff, we can go along the street and making sure that everything is uniform and everything. So you can be like, right, we used it this time heavily for that internal town, the development area, and we could map and make sure that our net rates for that square metre land was fair across there. So it's more transparency, and the OVG knows how to use that as well, looking for that.
Thank you. I just was interested in that. And I've got one more question if I can, just a quick one. When you go on to like the house selling websites like Homes or those, they've already got the new GV, the new rateable value on them. But how do they get that in advance of it being sort of
it would have been publicly released.
It was, we withheld it for a week.
Yep.
In that sense that, once it got approved, it was sent to council for a start, and that was withheld for a week until it becomes straight public notice, but understanding of that.
So if somebody wants to object to it, then they would see that change on this website. So if you did it, you sent it to council, council sent you sent the letters out at the same time you sent it to council?
Well, there is roughly around the same time, but it's a slight delay in the sense of the post and everything like that. It's like that, for instance, of the...
You emailed it to council?
Yeah, but it goes to council, so we got approved on Friday.
Yeah.
And that was emailed over the weekend and picked up on Monday for the council, but that was then withheld to everywhere else for a whole week while council could see and upload it into their website.
So then council, when did you send it out to residences?
By the end of that week it started to come, it gets sent in the post,
Yeah, and that's when you sent it out to the other,
Yeah.
whoever else asked for it.
Everyone,
Yeah.
it becomes
Publicly
public.
notified.
It's public notice, and
Yeah.
they pick it up, Trade Me and all them pick it up straight away.
Thank you.
Is there a valuation role here as well? Is that what?
Correct. And
We've
that's why we
asked
needed
the
some
building.
time.
I
We
couldn't
needed
see
some
it
time
online.
so Lorraine could actually get that updated and just check, make sure we hadn't missed anything.
Yeah, it was just all just
There's a public valuation role which is downstairs somewhere.
Downstairs, I believe.
People can have a look at
I think we have it
valuation.
online actually.
It's online as well.
Is it online? Can you see it online?
I'll check where it is and I'll send it out to you.
Yes, but no.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the re-evaluation overview, and you've got the number of assets, you've listed them. I don't know what slide it's on, but you've got forestry, mining. So what determines mining? Is it when they've got a consent for, you've got 87?
So that's your quarries and your shingle pits. And
So shingle
everything.
pits are included in
That's
that?
all included under the mining code, category code. So
Okay. And utilities, what's included? So we have 150 of those. What's included in those?
so that's your railway, it's water, the line, like your power lines, stuff like that. That's to do with other substations
Substations.
and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, so our water treatment plants,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Well,
Thank you. Just on the work that you've done and the values that have gone up on properties substantially in some cases, and obviously people looking at us sitting on a better asset as such, but you commented before there could be objections. What sort of percentage would you generally expect for objections, and would you have the staffing to get around to answer people's concerns, etc. with that?
Great question. About the national average last year for objection rate throughout the whole country was 1.4% objections. Ashburton has historically been lower than that, so fingers crossed that's the same again. And yes, we have plenty of staff to inspect those.
So you're expecting that percentage to be similar with what prices you've put or valuations you've put out?
Yes, yeah, I can never say how it's all going to play out, but I would anticipate between 1 to 2%.
Yeah. So what sort of staffing and how many people have
So
you
that,
got?
so that 1-2% is 100 and
It's around 300, or 2% would be 340 objections.
we usually send the same team down who done them, so that was the team of 6, and they'll do the areas that they've previously done in the revaluation. So it'll be a couple of days inspecting, and then going back for a couple of weeks to write them up and get them out to people.
And of those that you've assessed, just in the last few years sort of thing, to reassess it, sorry, has there been a lot of change with your visits, or not much?
A lot of the changes are and historically are people doing work, so it's automatically, so if you do a kitchen and bathroom, you don't need a consent, so therefore it's not picked up. So a lot of the time that there is a high percentage of changes wanting it up, is usually the biggest one is someone's done a lot of work to their property. So that's where you'll get the change. Going down the other way, it has to be something significant to be, or out of line with the value, in the sense that the place hasn't had any maintenance done to it, or it's the opposite of that work done, to actually be able to get the value down. Just because you don't want to have it that high is sometimes, there's can be a no change. We'll come and inspect it, explain to you what the sales are. Thank you. It's a fair market value. Just because you want it down is not a good enough reason in that sense.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah.
so the district's got a value of 23.2 billion, land capital value, which we all own a piece of, or most of us do. And went up 10% on valuation last time on capital value. No further questions, I don't think so. Thank you, Chairman, for coming in. That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see you again in 3 years' time.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, councillors, next item is number 7, the solid waste management contract tender evaluation and elected member service.
Thank you.
Neil, anything to add to your report?
A very short report.
Yeah.
Tender proposals closed on Friday, so we're really looking forward to councillors to be available on those dates that are mentioned in the report. Thursday the 17th, and then 2 days the following week.
Yeah, have you got any questions for the councillors? Councillor Wilson.
I understand last time, we talked about this in the workshop, it's good to hear it out public, that last time when there was a tender was put out, a few years ago, quite a few years ago, 2 councillors were full members. They weren't just observers. I hate observers because they just no point being there. They were full members. Why would we not have them as full members?
I think it's quite a very involved process. It's a lot of time, a lot of reading, and particularly in this tender proposal, we're expecting about 3 or 4 tenderers and big, thick documents which consume a lot of time reading and understanding. So what we did is we've just really focused on people who understand the solid waste business and have been involved in it to have the time, the knowledge and experience to go through it in detail. And councillors are to observe and ask questions, hear the presentations. That's probably the reason why.
So can I have another question on that one? So who you don't have to put names, but sort of more titles of who are the people that will be on this?
On the panel?
Yeah.
The panel chair is Ewan Skinner from Morrison Lowe, who's done this many times before. We've got Hernando Marilla, our Operations Project Manager, Viv Iberg, our previous Operations Project Manager, Helen Ramsey, who's from Morrison Lowe, who's typically done several of these similar contracts around the country, and Justin Bloomfield, who manages our contract.
Questions? I'll just take one question for you, Neil. Bottom of page 34, the council observer, they will not attend the negotiation meetings with the preferred supplier. Why wouldn't they?
That was just a recommendation that came through from Morrison Lowe. It's what they typically previously do.
You can change that if you wish. I wonder why they wouldn't be. They're all the way through, and then they're not.
Yep.
I do have a second question for Carolyn. There's there'll be observers required to sign a conflict of interest form. If they why are they conflicted? I can understand the confidentiality agreement, but a conflict of interest, what would be the conflict?
I think it's perhaps if they pass on any information they've heard or they've witnessed or they've in the process of the tender evaluation meetings and presentations, it's probably just to tighten up things so that information isn't shared.
Confidentiality would deal with that, I'd have thought, agreement on NDA. Does that conflict them in voting for when they're sitting around this table? If they're conflicted there, does it conflict here?
It will very much depend on the conflict. If the council is a shareholder of one of the tendering companies, that would be a clear conflict. If you were a family member of the principal of one of the companies, it would be a clear conflict. So I think it's to preserve the integrity of the whole process, like all conflicts, they'll be greater or lesser, or perhaps even just perceived. But it's a matter of making sure that we do this as openly and transparently and fairly as possible.
Yeah. So they'll have conflict of interest, be required to sign a conflict of interest form if required. It may not be conflicted.
Correct.
Yeah. Questions? Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. I'm just reading point 3. In some cases, elected members may wish to observe the process, which involves attending contractor presentations and tender evaluation panel meetings. And then we want 2 councillors. Are they one and the same, or can we all attend the process?
No, this is suggesting 2.
And it's got may wish.
Yeah, I think that's just a general sort of statement that was presented.
So you anticipate, if I may ask a question through the chair, you anticipate 2 councillors turning up to watch you award it?
Yes, council requested that we do appoint 2
But when,
observers.
why? Okay, so they're going to watch you award it, and then can they question the people?
Yes, yes.
Through Mr. Bear, this is in response to council's request to have
Yep.
observers through this process. So we were simply trying to create the very mechanism that you asked for.
And it happened 8 years ago when the last conference was 1 years ago,
That's correct.
when the last one was met, with council involved. It made the process go smoother, I hope, especially when it gets to this table.
I think they were full members last time, Mr. Mayor, not just observers.
Yeah, they were. The last time, there were 2 members on the panel.
Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. For clarification, I was one of those members last time. It was an onerous task going through those tender documents when first time I'd done that. I think I drove Viv a bit mad because I had to keep seeking clarification on different things. I see being able to be an observer for someone on this, but able to ask questions as well, will give the council a very good understanding of what it is without having to really get into an area that's outside their expertise, I believe.
Thanks, Neil.
Kia ora.
When we had the independent, the councillor member on the selection, you know, evaluating the tenders, did council ask, through to Hamer, the chief executive, did council ask that we not be a full member, that we become an observer member?
Yes, that's
I don't recall that. Was that after when Russell was on it, or?
No, it's just a couple of months ago.
Yes.
Okay, so we said we just want to watch you do it.
Yeah.
And that process, the last time this was done, was I think the only contract that councillors have been, there may have been one after that within that year, but since then it hasn't been practiced.
Early on we were.
Before then.
No further questions? Got 2 gaps there. And Councillor Ellis has indicated that he wished to be an observer, as he started once before. Is there a nomination for another councillor who would like to do it?
Councillor Hooper?
Councillor
Yeah.
Hooper?
Mr. Hooper? No one else? You can only have 2. No one else? There's a thanks.
I'll move.
Recommendation now. Councillor Graham has moved. Councillor Millen has seconded that council appoints councillors Ellis and Hooper to observe the tender evaluation process for the solid waste management contract. Any discussion? Councillor Cameron.
I think it's great that we've got some volunteers to go on a committee as an observer. I think it's a little bit, I can't see the reason for it other than individual learning and understanding of how tenders are run, because we don't have any influence over the decision making. I suppose we can have a rigorous review of how the tender is evaluated, and we can say, well, we're not happy with the way it's evaluated, but we cannot influence, other than through questioning, who is a successful tenderer. So my point is, I'd reinstate next time, if we're allowed to, I'd like to discuss reinstating councillor members that can actually influence the outcome or make a decision, you know, have a view and make a decision.
You'll get to make a decision when it comes to this
Yes,
table.
yeah, but we won't have the background then, will we, in the understanding?
No,
So,
2 councillors will.
yeah.
And may assist in us making that decision. Because when we debate it, no staff are debating it, but those councillors can be being involved in the process. We're going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next item is item 8, page 36, road stopping for part of Alexandra Street, Chertsey for water treatment plant. Jeff, welcome. Anything further to add to your report? No. Councillors, questions? Councillor Lover.
Just looking at the, on page 42, are these future sections, subdivisions on the map? Because I'm just wanting to know where we're shifting this treatment station to. It won't stop these sections being developed in the future. They'll have access.
So if you see their existing sections, but if you see the parcels that are identified as lots 127, 125, 123 and 121, there is an application or a survey plan that has been through and a subdivision application to amalgamate those titles. So once that is done, that will only be one parcel, so that will still have access both from the remaining portion of Alexander Street that's still open and the adjacent street up the side as well. And then the two parcels at the King Street end will still have road access as well. So every parcel will still have access from Alexander Street.
Okay, so it must have been part of an old village or years ago, these lines.
Yeah, so it would have been part of the original, original Chertsey subdivision, but a lot of them seem to be in common ownership.
Okay, thanks.
Rob?
The digging along to get along to that site, the trees there possibly looking like that pine or macrocarpa. If there are any other species, is there any restriction on digging around their roots?
That might be an Andy question.
Yes, through the chair, as far as I'm aware, there's no heritage trees in this location. Trees are just holding pine type.
Thanks, Andy.
It's just a question for myself. It's on page 37 under risks at the bottom. The 12 hectare property adjacent. This is unlikely to object. How do you know that?
You can look at the aerial imagery. There doesn't appear to be any gateways that are using that, and there is, with 12 hectares in size, there are a number of, it's bounded by roads, so I just can't anticipate why it would be of concern.
It's just a
It's
summation.
what we're looking at stopping is currently unformed, so, and only a small portion of it.
And what's the timeline for doing this?
So there's it must be advertised twice at least 7 days apart, and then it has to be open for objections for at least 40 days. And once that part's through, then it's a matter of some the paperwork being completed and lodged.
So 3-4 months?
Sounds about right.
Fastest one yet.
Fingers crossed.
There you go. Any further questions, councillors? There's a recommendation there. Councillor Lover moves.
I'll move recommendations 1, 2 and 3.
Councillor Ellis seconded. Recommendations 1, 2 and 3 taken as one. Further debate? Any debate? If not, I'll put the motion all in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 9, carryover funding from 23 to 24. Page 43.
Through the chair, I've just got one correction. I just lost my report. And adding a last minute change, the front recommendation should say 900689 in capital, not 8. And if you look to the last page of that report, you'll see the table where it adds to the 9006.
page is the last page.
Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to get back into my whole system just crashed on me. Really good. So last page is
54.
54.
So the 8 should be a 9, or the 8 is correct?
The 9 is correct, 9,006,894. I had to go in and put in a total that I've missed of one of the carry forwards, and I changed it, but I missed the 9 for some reason. Let's go to page, what's the total? Page 54. So 9,006,894 is correct, and I've emailed that through to Philippa for the same, and 1318,706 for the...
So we'll make that change to the recommendations, so 9 and 7, 8. Councillors, questions? Oh, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Just a question on the stock water carryover, page 45, item number 13, stock water fish screen detailed design for one of the stock water intakes. Given Council's resolution that they plan to no longer be in the business of providing stock water, is this still a requirement?
Through the chair, if I could just ask Neil or Andy to respond to that one.
Yeah, so the commitment we've made at this point in time is to do the design for the fish screen. We've made no commitment to do any construction, and that would be part of any negotiation with perhaps another provider when we come to decide what we're doing with that intake.
Can I ask a further question, please? Would it be part of the negotiation whether we do it or not, or whether we, what does that mean?
Well, effectively, our contribution would be providing a design for the fish screen. The negotiation would be about if they want to take over the intake, they would have to pay for the capital.
For the fish screen, but we have done the design, so that makes it a little bit easier for the whoever that may be. Okay, thank you.
For Councillor Milne, there's no wastewater carryovers.
That's correct.
All done.
Are we okay to just jump through and...
Page by page?
Are we going to do page by page?
Do you want to? Yeah.
Well, I don't know if anyone's got any other questions on
In
that.
general, but if you do the page.
I'm on page 49.
But why don't we go start at page
Yeah.
46,
And
or
that's-
40, 45. If you just want to, you've got the general questions, you want to do the numbers now?
Yeah.
The questions on the numbers. 45. You're working with 46.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just, you have committed, which I understand, work's underway, we've committed to doing the work, it's a timing thing for the dollars. What does this mean required? That means it has to be done to meet the standards, or what does that mean required?
Yeah, for the most part, certainly for our stuff, if it's required, we still have to do it, but we haven't actually got a contractual commitment to do it at this point.
So is there a time frame around that required? Or is it because these are carryovers for the next 12 months?
Yeah, so the particular one there is the hatchery example. We're required to have that in place as part of our current compliance requirements, but it got delayed because it was waiting for Mount Somers to be constructed and free up some equipment.
So one more question please, with your indulgence. It's got expected completion date 30th of June 25, so where it's got required, it will be done by that date, is that correct?
That's the intention.
Okay, thank you. And the resources are in place to do that? Thank you.
Page 44, it talks about committed and required.
Yeah.
What the explanation say. Page 46. Just at the bottom there, we talk about the water resources and redirected toward council's exit of the stock water activity. We put money in this year's budget for that. So why are we needing this money to be pushed forward into that we've already budgeted for this year we're in now?
Yeah, so that budgeting that I was asking council for the funding was assuming this carryover would be in place, and the additional funding is to top up year 2 and 3.
So 3 years.
Yeah.
Thank you. 47. Lynette.
I've just got a question on the Oval Pavilion. It's not, it's not 48. We haven't got it in our possession or whatever yet, but I was just looking at you doing a booking system. So that booking system, if we haven't got the oval pavilion by then, will that booking system be able to be used in the Walnut Avenue Pavilion and any of the other halls that we own?
Correct. So through the chair, this was, we did carry this forward last year and asked to repurpose and include the booking system because we knew we were taking over, or we were optimistic to take over Walnut and over within the current year, but we definitely need to look at that for the Walnut Pavilion and other facilities we have in this district.
I quite like the idea of this booking system, so that's good. Thank you.
Budget for it. Councillor Cameron?
Looking at the art gallery, going on to that.
Yep.
Required, I take your point, Neil, I did read that earlier, that's why I asked the question. Required projects are where no commitment exists, although some may be associated with legislative requirements, compliance. Councils may have some discretion regarding the carryover approval, that's why I've got required. When you go down to, we've got 1.9 million carryover for the art gallery aircon, I'm assuming. Yes, aircon, on page 48. That was discussed at council, how long ago? Two years ago, was it, or a year ago?
Oh, even longer.
Yeah, I'm worried about the robustness of that number. Do we need to worry about that robustness? We don't want to get a fright.
Yes, we too are worried about the robustness of that number, but until we understand the solution, it's very hard to define the exact number we will need. And as we get closer to a definitive solution to apply for a variation to the resource consent, we will start to be able to define up that number. What we're really doing with this report is bringing that amount forward, and whether it is sufficient for the whole job or whether it requires more will depend on the design.
Yeah. Okay, one more question, Neil, please.
Yep.
So if the air conditioning unit comes back as, they don't do that one anymore, we need to get another one, and there's more money required, like, I'm not talking about the consent, resource consent, and there's more money required, then you'd come back to council for ask for more money, is that how the process goes? And this 1.9 would be up for grabs as well then in that discussion?
I believe up for grabs. We'll have the first 1.9 ready to go, and if it's more than that, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, I suppose my question says we probably wouldn't want you to start at 1.9 if it came back to $5 million and then we're halfway through the job and we've got to find another $3 million.
Oh, no, correct. We'll come back to you.
Yeah.
No. So this was just a carry forward that's been sitting there for a couple of years from when I first walked in the door.
It's a long
This is
time.
early conversation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get inflated, it is purely bringing forward the budget, the underspending the budget.
Page 49, at the top, the property admin personnel, 80k carry forward for catch-up. You carried that 80k forward last year as well.
Correct. So through the chair, what we did was we carried it forward. It took us a while to get a person. We have got somebody appointed, and we've been filling up. We've had a couple of different changes in personnel and continue to have gaps, and we're trying our utmost now that we've got the position to get that work done.
Will that not be budgeted as business as usual?
Through the chair, no, because it's an additional resource that
Fixed term.
It's not a permanent position.
It's
It's
fixed
a
term.
fixed term, so I couldn't budget it through the normal process.
Councillor Miller?
Yeah, thank you. The Mayfield Reserve mower shed, what was the total that was granted to them? Was it 58? Was it 58,000 total? And I thought we'd had a report back to say that it was going to be a lot less than that.
Thank you through the chair. Yes, correct. It was 58,000 in total. What's happened is many of the bills that the shed is complete, and quite a lot of invoices are coming in over that July-August period. We are seeing that they've got about $15,000 that they are underspent by, which is what they would like to have carried forward to purchase the mower.
So the 58,000 won't be carried forward as a whole, or well,
It's timing, so part of it is committed as such. Bills are just coming in and they need to be paid. So it'll be the balance would be the $15,000.
Richard?
It's the same elk as that with reserve boards, they put in to get things done, which is Mayfield and Methven have, and then through their good management, which is normally how it comes out in their voluntary, they come at a lower budget. Does that mean that they can keep that budget to spend on other things, or what happens? Because that's what we're sort of saying here, aren't they? They're saying that we've been given the 58 grand, therefore they can spend it on anything else that they deem fit. So how's that process working, rolling out? Because it's the same with the Methven one, it's the same thing, they've unspent balance. So obviously did a good job at doing it cost effectively, and now they want to spend on something else, completely different to what they originally said almost. So what's the process around that?
Okay. Tony?
Thank you, through the chair. So this is the process for when the project, when they have had a capital project that they had come under, it has to come back through council to seek that money to be reused and repurposed, for example. The Methven work with the Bailey water pipes, that's been a continual issue for the Methven Reserve Board over the last less than 18 months that I've been involved. It's almost like four people, they fix one leak and something else pops up somewhere else. So the board asked if there's an opportunity for this unspent money to be repurposed for that, without having to come back and seek additional funding in future. So entirely council's discretion, and we've made that very clear to the reserve boards that it is not a given, that this is council's decision at the end of the day.
Just on the Methven one, the job's been done. Why are we carrying it forward? It was completed on March 24. Expected completion date is June 24. It's been completed. Why are we even carrying it forward? Is this circuit? Okay.
Through the chair. So the resale project has been completed, but they have got $14,000 unspent from that project. So they came in under budget.
Right.
So they have asked, could we repurpose that funding to sort this leaky pipe situation out?
What did they say what they were going to use it for? Repurpose it.
Yes, they did. So on the Methven Reserve, they have a network of water pipes that are providing water to different locations with the different buildings, and they have a bit of a leak issue. So, and this has been ongoing for quite some time, so they'd like to replace this part of the pipe that's causing the problem.
And I'm happy with that.
Just on the Mayfield one, just for clarity, what was that grant issued under as its umbrella? Because are they allowed to then under that buy a tractor and that sort of thing? Because we're just going to be a little bit careful here. Yeah.
So,
Thank you through the chair. So it was a reserve contribution that pulled that money into the Mayfield Reserve. We have checked the reserve contribution rules, and because it's for the benefit of the reserve contribution can be allocated to this purpose if council chose to.
page 50.
Just one last point of clarification on that. So we're trying to get the reserve boards to put forward budgets that are robust and take into account what they want to do in the years ahead, so that it makes sense. So does this money here, does it take away from any other reserves that have got projects underway, and when they come to us we go, we haven't got enough funds for them? It's like a contestability. So I'm just trying to understand that.
Tony?
Thank you through the chair. No, it doesn't. The operational funding for these reserve boards, when they have a good year and they do well and make a little bit of money, that then just drops into their own reserve, and that helps to build their reserve over time. So that's the decision here today doesn't take money away from anybody else. It's completely discreet.
Phil?
If we had feedback from grant applicants that the process is a bit messy.
Tony?
Thank you for the chair. Yes, we have. It can be a little bit cumbersome and a bit clunky at times, particularly when they're trying to give us all the attached information, like evidence of who they are and the bank account details and all of that stuff. It's just cumbersome. And also from our internal side of things, the system isn't talking to each other. So we get it in one way and then we have to manually go and upload.
Thank you.
Page 50. Richard?
Oh, sorry. The EA enhancement one's the 58,000 carryover request. So if we've seen the benefits of that, obviously, coming through,
Sarah?
Sarah?
Yes, and the process with regards to that is like even just moving all the lighting from old school halogens to LEDs. So as you know, in a new building, LED lighting is much more efficient. So we're using the underspend that's been created to capital improvements of smaller nature that we can chip off sort of small chunks by small chunks, so that we get better efficiency in terms of using that space. So that's why it's really beneficial, and we'd like to continue with that project of improving our efficiency.
The mini golf consultancy of 16,000, it was quite a low cost budget project, I thought. 16,000 of it on consultants.
You would be surprised.
I am.
Yeah.
One quote for the consultancy and design, which is actually more complicated than one would think, was over 55,000. So we haven't opted for that. We're going for a process where we've committed, I think it's, I'm going to say 5,000 to date, to get us to a stage of sort of 2D, 3D drawings that will then be shared with the council to see whether or not we proceed with this project. So we haven't opted to that, but given that there was some consultancy spent, we thought it was wise to bring it forward on the assumption that the project will proceed, but if it doesn't, it won't get spent.
We've budgeted monies in the long-term plan for the project to proceed, so that the consultant must know the number that's been budgeted and do a design to fit.
Yes, we've proposed to use the reserve contribution account. It's only investigation at this stage with a tag to it, so it's not been part of the budget and to increase rates. So if council was to not go ahead with the mini golf project, the reserve balance in the reserve account would remain exactly as is. If the project goes ahead, clearly there'll be a reduction in the reserve balance. So at the moment we're just doing the investigation.
I think council decided they were building a mini golf course there, as we understand it, for a price of, and to be completed by the end of the financial year at the latest. So I think you may need to keep moving pretty quick.
We are moving as quick as we can, but the actual resolution of council is that we investigate and we bring it back to you. So we're working on it, rest assured. We're looking forward to our workshop
In early November.
presentation. Yeah.
Great. Kelly?
Just to finish that one, I think an officer brought in the proposed costs for the mini golf. I remember they came across, and that's how we budgeted for them in the long-term plan. Can I talk about, please, the next page, or we got other people to do it?
There's nothing further on 50.
No, on 51.
One thing.
Yeah.
I have one question. 50, it's under library. Roll forward some money there to Whare Whakatiri for the installation of some shade infrastructure. Remember through the long-term plan it was asked for there, and we said no. It's not cold or windy or sunny. Go inside, it's 5 steps. I'm not sure why it's appearing here again, but councillors will view.
We did say something.
We did say that.
Yeah.
Sarah?
This wasn't raised as part of the long-term plan. I think it has been a hazard that's been identified through the Audit and Risk Committee. Correct. And that's where the comments you may be recording from.
Could be, probably more likely you were correct.
Yeah.
But I think the direction was not to spend monies on it. If councillors have a view. Does that carry forward? Or not?
Through the chair, there was 2 parts to that.
Yes.
Just there's also the blinds on the ground floor of the building. So this is really around health and safety. Yes, we did discuss the playground, but we also discussed the blinds within the first floor where the library staff and people are. And so we're requesting, since we didn't need to do as much in the way of makerspace and other costs that we originally budgeted, to spend in the library because we had the big lot funding. We're proposing, if possible, to have this as health and safety, and blinds is another issue in there. Hence we've said, can the chief exec sign off any further health and safety?
Did the blinds come through the audit risk?
No, they did not. This was the blind. The only thing we talked about at audit risk was the shade, etc., out in the playground. This is inside.
When are we going to start saving some money? Was it, you did well in not spending it.
Yeah.
If you want to keep spending it, you've got to pull back. Your thoughts? Richard?
I must admit, I think we talked about the tree and we talked about the shade before we planted the tree, so it might take a bit longer, but I wasn't that keen on it. I agree with you, they can be go inside. And the blinds, I don't know about the blinds because obviously that's a new one as to whether they're needed or not. So.
Through Mr. Mayor, I wonder if the play courtyard has already been turned down, how much is the blinds? So if the 50's for both, what's the portion that we need for blinds?
I thought it was about 18 months. That was your opinion, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Through the chair, I believe it was almost a 50-50 split. It might have been slightly more weighted to the play equipment and the blinds, like it might have been 20-30. The installation of a shade structure still had some questions around it. The actual structure itself was fine. What we didn't know yet and haven't observed yet, based on this conversation, was the actual installation of it, like how we install it in the courtyard to be most effective and to have no negative impacts to other users. So yeah, it's a project that if we had the approval to spend the money, we would continue with looking and investigating how we achieve it to enable that place to be used, year round and not get the comments of my kids can't slide on the slide when it's too hot.
I might have missed it, but because the train went through, but what's the health and safety risk for not having the blinds there?
Oh, sorry, the blinds is about, in the winter sun, there is significant sunstrike. So in terms of that little cafe, library area, walking up the stairs, you've just got direct sunlight. And there have been incidences where people have, members of the public have commented, staff most definitely have, and you almost can't see in front of you because you're walking into the sun and there are
Councillor Cameron?
I wasn't going to talk about that, but I've been forced to. This is a new building that's been architecturally designed with special architraves and special linings and all sorts of things, and understanding the external environment and mitigating climate change, special heating, cooling, all sorts of things. Surely the blind issue seems a fundamental thing that we shouldn't have snuck up on us. And I mean, the sun in winter would all, I mean, the sun is lower in winter, I do concede that, but the sun in winter is actually quite nice, I would have thought.
Mr. Mayor, we're just simply bringing you the issue. It wasn't anticipated, it's worse than we thought, it is a hazard. Roll the money, please, if not, don't. But we've just got what we've got.
Here's, just following the committee Lydia. Is that 50,000 borrowed or is it rate funded?
Would have been rate funded from previous years, so it's will go into just the general capital.
That was your capital.
We'll clarify that.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting it's $50,000 less to be borrowed.
I don't believe that it's loan funded.
If it's loan funded, my suggestion is we don't spend it. Taking $50,000 for some blinds and a shade, it's going against their wishes.
We know there's a health and safety issue on those steps.
How do you know that?
If public have commented on it or someone slipped, if we know there's an issue here, if somebody slips on those steps again and And could they take us to court over that, knowing that we know there's an issue, we have the funding here sitting in these minutes, that we should have been doing something about it, and here we're sitting around this table and saying, no, we're not going to try to litigate that. Where do we sit?
Oh, potentially, I'm not saying that it's likely or that will happen, but it is certainly possible. We're highlighting a hazard, we need some resource to solve it. We come here and request it, it's turned down, but we're making you aware of the hazard.
I think, personally, I think if we've got that money there, we have to try to solve this issue. Whether we like it or not, I know it's a brand new building, but we can't foresee every problem, can we?
Rob. Thank you. I understand what Nick's saying, but at the moment I would disagree. We have a lift available down there that could be for very significant cost. Put a sign directing people to use the lift while there is the potential sunstrike risk.
For me, it's where does it stop? You get sunstrike on the road when you're driving, you drive slower and careful. There's slides and domains all around our region. Do we put shade cloth over them all? Oh, yeah, I'm a no for this one.
Sounds like so. Yeah.
Yep.
Next page, 51.
Thank you.
Carolyn.
I'm looking at the web design, branding and website development, that's under arts and culture. Is that, but when I read the words associated with that, words around 34, they're talking about the specialist exhibition lighting. What's the branding and website development? Well, can someone remind me what that was for, please?
Sorry, the branding and website development was a project that we put through at last carried forward request. It is a comments on is to do the final stages of the merger of the art gallery and the museum to be one entity, one organisation, one website, one social media page, one everything. So that's the funding for that project. It has been delayed. The intention was for that to be concluded by 30 June this year. It really hasn't, and we've still got work to do on that with the council as well to share where we're landed, but the funding needs to move forward so that we can continue with that.
Russell.
Thank you. The exhibition lighting delays occurred because awaiting commitment, and then there's a new product available that were brought. So was that the same price or cheaper, or because we were told there was a very specific one only German-made product, hence it was that cost. Now we see there's a new product. I assume it was the same cost.
It was increasing of cost every 6 months. Sure.
It's the same company and it's the same light. It's a new model of their lights, and the plus, which is the good news story of this, is that the luminaire hours are significantly larger on the new model versus the old model. So this has been an example of where waiting a little bit longer has actually really paid off in terms of the product we'll be receiving for that money. It's going to last longer. Initially they had a 10-year life, now they're saying it's 15 to 20.
Page 51, information systems. Still a request to carry over for storage hardware. I thought all that storage was up in the cloud somewhere.
Through the chair, this is storage hardware, and so they've started that work. We were slightly behind with resourcing into this, getting us into this lovely new building, and we've got to finish that project off.
Page 52. 2 fixed-term contracts, are we likely to fill them?
Through the chair, if I can respond to that. So this is part of the work. So one of the things we've been doing with IS is actually identifying our high priority projects. And a big piece of that work is getting our business efficiencies working in Tech One, which is the system we use, particularly in finance. And you'll see there's 2 parts. You'll see the IS request, and then you'll see one in Treasury. And we are really desperate to get our finance system working more efficiently. The only way we can do that is to free up people to focus on this work and get this work done.
So that's where we focused on, just to finance those 2
Big chunk is also, we've got 20 projects that are key projects within INS. 10 have been shortlisted, 5 is the top priority, finance system is the top priority, and then there's 5, and we're trying to get through this work because IS just had such a backlog of work.
52, any questions? 53. People and capability, did we not budget for CE recruitment? We knew it was going to happen. So it's by the law. Right? So,
Through the chair, we didn't budget any more for it. It's one of those funny appointment costs and people and capability. I should have looked and checked that under the council budget, because that's where the CE appointment and review costs are, that it had been included, where I didn't, and hence we, depending on what decision you make regarding the recruiter, this may be required or it may not be required, but at the moment we didn't have any, so we thought that this was a safe option and we don't know the decision about the costs.
questions, page 53. Treasury. The 175 you're moving forward, what are we for Check One and Information Services for Finance. That was budgeted in 22-23, which was 2 years ago, and we've achieved nothing.
We budgeted to do it in the year, we've just completed the long-term plan year. If you recall, we lost a really key person in the middle of our annual report in October. We have only just got our final appointment done in June, I think, Tony. No, actually it was after that. It's actually been in this financial year. It has taken us a while to do resourcing. On top of that, as I'm sure you get it, we've had our head down with the long-term plan being down 2 staff, so that has been really hard work. So we're asking to get year 2 of the annual of the long-term plan is probably the clearest year for finance to be able to put their head down and get this work done, and desperately keen to get this work done.
Yeah, I think it's very important work.
It is.
And it's been hanging for some time. I think we need a good level of reporting on it to see that it's on target. Even her own little special reporting every 6 weeks in our activity briefings that we are achieving and going to get where we need to get. This project is important, really important.
We hear that.
Yeah, cool. Plant?
So through the chair, this is our fleet, and we have got them ordered. We've just had delays getting them delivered, and to speed that up, we're going to order a lot more of the current year's budget very early in the year. So I've asked our person to drive that a bit quicker.
Last year, you carried over a lot of monies and
We spent it, and then we're still trying to get through and get the vehicles delivered.
Do you need to, or do you just take a stop and then just start again? They'll last another 6 months or whatever.
Well, it'll be another 12 months. We can do that where we're trying to keep our fleet relatively up to date, because that makes your best efficiencies both in the operations and also on the resale.
Another question over here.
Mine was the same question as yours. Can we just reset, push it out 6 months? Would that make a material difference? You've got June 25, I think, in there for the...
We have a number of ageing fleet. There's a few actually that should have been done much sooner.
Can you elaborate, what is an ageing fleet?
They're older than we would like. We've got a few, and I haven't got the detail in front of me, but I've got a few that I thought we would have replaced last year, if not the year before, they were quite 5+ years.
She's looking for an age of the fleet. Do you?
Yeah.
It's the age of the vehicles.
Yeah, like that. What do you like? I mean, I don't know. I've got no clue. I mean, I'm driving around 10 years, I think, is my life.
It depends on the vehicle to the life of the vehicle. So cars typically last 4 years. Our what do we call it? Utes, 5 to 7 years. It depends on the vehicle and the distance they're travelling. And also we have trucks and other the stuff that open spaces uses. So there's a number in that, in what we call our fleet.
Do you have a fleet replacement policy or procedure?
We have a policy that I've been working on that I have not quite finalised, but where it recommends kilometres and or age, depending on how that comes through.
Is that a council document or internal?
It's an internal.
Thank you. I agree with Leanne. It makes good business sense. You only have to look at rental companies, Avis, whoever, their turnover is very regular, and that's how they stay in business. They don't lose money on vehicles.
So further questions? Well, page 54 is the summary. Karen?
Can you explain to me, please, Mr. Mayor, how the system goes? Like if we wanted to revisit the fleet, e.g., if we did, the fleet cost, how do we do that in this process? Can you help me understand that, please?
Policy.
Yes, you could. I mean, in reality, when you approve budget, the long-term plan or the annual plan, you're approving a sum of money to keep the fleet up to date. So you've already done that. In this case, we weren't able to complete that in the 12-month period, and we're seeking to roll that funding over. The logical time to have a look at the policy or the way in which that fleet replacement schedule works would be in the lead up to the next budget, when you're allocating the resource to do that. So we'll make a note of this conversation, and as we start gearing up for the annual plan, which is really only a couple of months away, then we will be conscious of your desire to understand that much better, and that is the time to make changes.
As long as we can make changes, because sometimes we get rushed for moving through to keep things on track. So, yeah.
Just want to add that we've been on a program of catching up since COVID, where we could not get vehicles, and that has been part of our issues. So we have been on this journey, catching up, as have some of our suppliers, since COVID.
And the question we'll ask when we review this is, what detriment was that by delaying 6 or 8 months or whatever months it was because of COVID? And we've given as a live example of getting the fleet a wee older. Russell.
Thank you. With the government forcing a change on us with the way we run our water services, that will have an impact also on our fleet of vehicles, because some will be for that purpose. So I think we need to be aware of that, because how we deliver our water services is going to change within now the next year. So I think we just need to also start thinking along those lines as well.
Yeah, I think that the change will take longer than within the next year. The next year involves us getting the water services delivery plan done across the line. It doesn't necessarily involve the working change in that same time frame, but you are right, there is any number of government reviews, signals, commentary that is impacting on the way local government does or does not do certain pieces of its current workload, all of which will have an impact on things like the fleet.
Further questions?
Through the chair.
Rob.
Just a little bit on the purchase of vehicles. Obviously, you've looked into the leasing of vehicles, etc. Was there much of a difference between outright buying and leasing as far as loss the other end?
We have in the past done that exercise, and the purchase and resale was the most cost-effective option. I'm not aware that we have re-examined that approach very recently, and we certainly haven't tended to do that on an annual basis, so we don't do that each year. But we have done that exercise in the past, and it's come out in favour of purchase.
Can you remember how long ago that was, Hamish?
I think it was before, I don't think we've done it since you've been here.
Not the last 2 years.
So we certainly haven't probably done it in the last 3 years.
Would you anticipate possibly deals are a bit sharper nowadays, or not?
Leasing deals?
Yes.
Potentially, we can have a look at that piece of work. We don't do that on a regular basis. We check in every now and then, so maybe we are due to do that.
Well, it might tie in with what Carol was talking about.
And we do procure through with government to get a really good deal on our purchasing.
So there's a recommendation there. If there's no more questions. Russell?
Thank you. Happy to move the recommendation, but I believe it comes down to 8956, 894 with less than
4,450.
Yep.
And it was capital expenditure. It would have been borrowed for those.
Through the chair, it was proposed capital, it was capital expenditure. We haven't drawn down the debt because we didn't do the purchasing.
Yeah. But if we could spend it,
And
we
you'll
would
see
have
that
drawn
in
down
that
debt.
summary page, that was
Which
it.
did. Stop borrowing.
I'll second that. And
Move Russell.
I agree with that amount.
Moved Russell, seconds it is. Open for debate. Richard?
We're having discussions with local water done well. I see our drinking water has some capital expenditure. We need to ensure that the money is spent when we say it, because we talk about governance of water. Governance is us, operations is Hamish and your team. So when we want the stuff done, we're going to hold you account to get the stuff done. I understand there's delays, but if there's delays, we should be budgeting for over a 2 or 3 year period and having that spread across those years, because that's critical to us getting our carryovers down as low as possible, because we've been doing what we said we're going to do on time and in budget. So I think I support the carryovers, but I think they need to be dropping down significantly, because that's where the government's going, that's where everybody's saying we should be going.
Yeah, we need to definitely get the work done in the year we've budgeted for, because with inflation being rampant over the last few years, when we do get to work, to do the work, it's gone up in price from what we budgeted on the year before. So we do need to, on a brighter note, the carryovers aren't as large as previous years, so we are making progress, which is good to see. But having no carryovers would be best, but that's probably a pipe dream, because there can always be some delays with something, but you're going to do the best you can do, and I think staff are doing the best they can do. Any further speakers for or against? Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. Item number 10, local approved products policy review. So we have Tony. Anything further to add?
No, thank you. Nothing further to add. Happy to answer questions.
Questions? Liz?
Thank you. I've got a question on page 61, and you've just got a few details on what other councils are doing, and I see Waipa and Whangarei have repealed their LAPP because the natural highs, or whatever you call them, the psychoactive substances aren't available anymore. So why would we not do that? It's probably a hard question, sorry. But I mean,
yes.
Is it likely that there will be that legal highs will come back and be able to be sold?
Well, we don't know, ultimately. I mean, there's always that possibility, and this sort of gives you a safeguard at this point. We have recently just got information about nitrous oxide as a potential risk.
Yeah.
So we're not, that's just in the last hour, so we don't actually know what the implications of that are. So our recommendation is that you keep it in for now, and if there's sort of more advice that we'll bring to you later in terms of how we review it more fully later.
So just another question. So the nitrous oxide, so that comes under this LA
PP?
That's the advice that other councils received, yes.
So in that case, it actually makes sense to keep, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any questions? If not, there's a recommendation then.
I'll move.
Councillor Millen
I'll
moved.
move it.
Councillor Phil, Rupert seconded. Open for the vote. I think we should keep this policy there. You never know what you don't know what you don't know. So if it's there, it's sitting there to be used if need be. That was a very hot topic about 6-7 years ago.
Probably longer.
Maybe longer, is it? Yeah.
But I'm speaking for it, I think, with that information about the nitrous oxide, I think that's probably quite key. We have our policy.
Any further speakers for or against? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried, thank you. Item number 11, financial reports. We'll go through page by page as usual. 75, 76, 77. These financials are up until the 31st of August. 78, 79. 80, 81. 82, 83. 84, 85. 86, 87. 88, 89. 90, 91. 92, 93. Just look at page 93. For criminal recollection, the last financial update we got, there were no internal borrowings, yet they're back.
The reason for that was that we were in the middle of preparing the annual report and hadn't funded the capital at that point when the report was put out for July.
You hadn't what, sorry?
Funded the capital expenditure in
Right.
the accounts when the report was put out for July. So that's why there's a balance in there now, because we have that in our draft before that.
It's 94, 95. On your term deposit with Westpac, you're getting 200% interest.
No, definitely not. I wish. Just under 5% interest. That's in error.
It's an extra 5%.
Be nice, but no.
Very good. 95 and 96. No questions? There's a recommendation there that we receive the financial report for August. Councillor Hooper, Councillor Todd. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Item number 12, service provisions over Christmas and New Year 24-25. Sarah, questions, Councillor? Or anything to add?
Nothing to add, happy
Cool.
to
That's right,
take
questions.
questions.
Thank you.
Carol?
Sarah, thank you for this. Is the closing, specifically around the EA Network Centre, is that standard what you do every year, finish at 3 o'clock on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve?
Yes, it is, and that's based on traditional trade being very, very, very slow at that period of time.
Yes,
so,
yeah, understand. Yeah, thank you.
Liz?
Thank you. So the EA Networks poll, the last day of operation will be the 31st of December. What were you thinking, was it 2 weeks or 3 weeks that you would be, or was it longer than that? A month?
Yeah, so the close, the EAU Work Centre over the Christmas New Year period is closed on public holidays, so hence the first and the second being closed.
Yeah.
Getting contractors in on public holidays, especially the 1st of January, would be virtually impossible. We're probably not that productive. So the closed down period is from the 3rd of January to the 2nd of February, reopening on the 3rd of February, which is a Monday.
Awesome. Thank you. Customer services remaining open is a new thing. Good thing, I think, but will that be with reduced staff, and then you'll obviously have to play with holidays that they're owed and that, because they're not going to use up what they normally use up over the Christmas period, that sort of thing?
Yes, what we are doing, we are trialling, and it is a new approach, and it was because of the joint facility with the library, it did seem funny that one part of the building was open and the other part wasn't. The call centre, we've got a contract with our external provider, so they will continue to take all the calls, so there will actually be one customer service staff member on only during the days in between Christmas and New Year. The whole building's closed down for public holidays, and customer services isn't open on weekends. So we're talking 4 days, but the team are willing to give it a go, and like the thought of not having the backlog come the 6th of January, because they've been clearing calls and any concerns raised as they go. The phone call system through the contractor clearly sends on any complaints or CRM straight away to contractors, but there are emails that they need to address. So we are trying. It might be a mission success or mission fail, but we'll give it a go.
Further questions on the Carol?
Looking at the opening hours for the Art Gallery Museum, the Annette, you said about it seems to me that the Art Gallery Museum is staying open for an extra hour at a minimum compared to the other council facilities. Is that correct?
The art gallery normal hours are 10 to 4 throughout the year, and they like to continue the same hours. All other council facilities have longer operating hours during across the whole year, and they, because of the low hours, they keep it consistent. They do have the public holidays and Christmas, but in New Year they open.
You'll have information on what the patronage has been like over that period, and whether those hours are suitable for the period you've got here, where they need to stay open as long. If there's no one coming, there's no point, and you will have that information. Like we showed the pool for maintenance, because it's the low use time of the year. It may be the same, I don't know, but I'm sure you'll have used the data to inform you on the...
Of late, I have been talking to Shireen about that, and in terms of public holidays and rest and relaxation for staff, and her comment is that galleries tend to open in the New Year sort of public holidays, being that when there's visitors from town coming down to see families, having a facility like that open is actually beneficial and a nice thing to do. And as an industry, she wasn't wanting to say let's close for extra days, so I took a lead from that.
As long as it's being utilised.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Recommendation here. Councillor Miller. Councillor Ellis. Seconded by Councillor Todd. You want to do it? All in favour? Or put the motion all in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Thank you. That takes us up to the end of the open part of the meeting. We'll exit and we'll go into, we'll have a cup of tea and we'll come back for a committee. We've got some work to do after this. Yeah, someone like to move. Councillor Miller, Councillor Cameron, all in favour, please say aye. Carried. We'll have